Hi, welcome to All the Sense in the World. I am privileged to have Michaela Carter with me today. I've been looking forward to a conversation with her. She is the author of a book I came across, Leonora in the Morning Light. And I first welcome Michaela.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Joy. I'm thrilled to get to talk to you today.
Yes, and we have a lot in common, mainly our love for the surrealist painter Leonora Carrington. And okay, so Michaela, I have to ask you, how did you first come across this painter?
Well, I was really interested in the surrealist movement, and then I knew I wanted to write a book kind of set during or before World War II, between the two wars in Paris, and I was fascinated by the surrealists, and I really wanted to know about the women, because at the time, I don't know, there just wasn't as much. There was actually nothing. So I was.
When did this take place? When were you kind of discovering this?
It was about 8 years ago. So it's like, had I been in other realms, I think I would have come across them. But I was in Europe, and I was there were surrealist exhibitions were popping up, kind of like I was in Scotland and there was one, and then I was in Paris and I came across another, but the women just weren't really being represented at all. And I was at the Tate Modern in London. Mm-hmm. My brother lives in London, and anyhow, I saw a small piece of hers, and I was fascinated. I was I couldn't believe I hadn't heard of her either. And then I got a book on her, the art book by Susan Aberth that goes into her life a little bit.
Yeah.
And then the more I found about her paintings, oh my gosh, yeah, I knew I had to write about her, but it also had to do with her story. And I think in the, what she was up against, and how she became this great artist that she was.
Yeah.
At such a young age.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
So as you were discovering this desire to write about her, and we can preface, so you are a writer, have been a writer. Can you tell us a little bit about your, discovering your writing ability? Because I can't just wake up and say, I guess we could. I'm going to be a writer, but we can, sure. But what was your process in discovering this ability you have?
It started when I was really very young. I remember my mom even just sitting down and writing out some of my poems I was spouting off before I could write. And then when I could write, I made little books, and illustrated them.
Yeah. Oh, and illustrated too.
Did you?
That's cute. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it was something that stayed with me and helped me. I think journaling helped me through high school and through eating disorders and that kind of thing. And then in college, I discovered, I don't know, should I say real poetry? I discovered poetry. I discovered modern poetry.
How did you discover it?
Well, I took a class with Stephen Yenser is his name. And it was modern poetry, and it was with my best friend who ended up marrying him.
You ended up marrying your best friend.
Best friend married our professor.
Oh, okay, got it. You didn't marry your best friend. Okay, got it.
Fortunately, it could have maybe it would have been great.
That's the other Leonora story. We're getting into
And
that
I
later.
that's another story. We took a writing class with him too, poetry workshop that you had to like apply for and be accepted, and it just felt so right. I was there. I got a degree in theater actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but the writing was what really lit that fire for me. And then I got a master's degree in poetry from Warren Wilson. And they had really the first distance program. So I could live in Los Angeles and then work with these amazing writers, poets like Ellen Bryant Voigt and Larry Levis and Marie Howe, just wonderful people. And then I wrote poetry for a long time, but I had kind of like larger stories I wanted to tell that really had to be prose. And so I wrote a novel. My first novel was Further Out Than You Thought, which
I haven't read that yet, which I'd love to.
Oh, that's so nice. Takes place during the 92, the Rodney King riots in LA.
Oh, I remember those very clearly. I was alive. Yeah.
Yeah, I had been caught up in them. And it was sort of at a turning point in my life. So it was just this story I felt like I had to tell. But after I told that story, I was kind of like, okay, now what? And I don't know, I was starting a project that was maybe closer to my own personal life. I'd never written historical fiction. But then I went to Paris with my daughter when she graduated from high school, because we had watched a lot of Gilmore Girls and they went backpacking in Europe. And so she wanted to do that and she got in a 4.0, so like, okay, we didn't backpack, but we did go to Europe.
Can I ask you, was that your first time to Europe?
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
I had been there. Well, I'd been there with a high school group after we graduated, but then I went with my mom to France when I was in college. And so it was kind of like a thing I could do with my daughter.
A rite of passage of sorts.
Yeah,
maybe.
Exactly. And I had bought a bunch of those kind of old postcards, different postcards that those vendors along the Seine, sell.
Yeah.
Up on my wall.
I think Lautrec is one. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And I did have some Dali. There was an exhibit there or something when we were there. And I was just like, oh, I want to be there. I don't want to really be here in the little town I live in northern Arizona. I want to imagine what it was like there. So it was kind of like finding my process. It had to do with finding the story that I wanted to tell, because I don't, while you can be drawn to different stories you want to tell, there's something I think that is inside you that has to be expressed or that has to match up with the story. For me personally.
No, I have to just take a moment, because what you're saying is exactly how I live every day. I am living a story in my soul. I feel, although I'm one place, I'm another. And it's interesting that you say you needed to tell a story. But I would say the power in that is first recognizing it, right? Recognizing that you have an ability to imagine, an ability to create these realities that some people have never even been somewhere like a Paris, where you say, wow, this is incredible. Some people just in their minds are envisioning everything. They've never actually felt it or smelled it, but they have a way to recognize it. And I find that interesting, because how do people do that? Is it because their spirits know something that we don't? You know what I mean? Like that our physical body doesn't recognize? Or And I'm saying that because I have felt that when I've gone to Italy. That's my place. And it makes me feel like I knew this place before, and I want to tell the story about it all the time. I want to be able to read a story and I don't know. I just, anyway, so tell us how you did that, because that's something that I'm sure a lot of people would love to be able to create their own reality because their mind wants it so much.
Yeah. I started kind of small. I started just in a notebook, really, because after I found her, and I had Susan Aberth's book that kind of touched on parts in her life, and I guess a lot of it had to do with sense memory, like you were saying, but also in acting. When I was trained as an actor, there's these sense memory exercises that we were doing, where you like, you're holding a coffee cup, but you're not really holding a coffee cup, but you are holding the coffee cup. You're feeling the heat, you're smelling the coffee, you're like creating it in your body, and that helped a lot with writing this, because I put myself there. I did a lot of timed writing and stream of conscious kind of.
Sorry, a lot of what writing?
Timed, like I would set a timer for a half hour every morning, and I would just go into a scene that I imagined, write it as fast as I could.
Awesome.
So that it was more about creating it than it was about putting words on the page, I guess, because
okay. I get that. Yeah, that's cool. That's a great idea.
And then I took what I had written longhand, and that's another thing too. Longhand is such a fascinating way to write. For me, I feel like there's something about the connection between your hand, you're writing it versus typing.
You mean like with one of these?
An old-fashioned pen, right? But I think there's a connection with your heart.
I agree. I agree.
That comes out through, and I feel like Leonora said something about that, how for her writing and painting both seemed natural and interchangeable in ways, because it was all through her hand. And then that was just a place to start, and then I worked on the book for about 7 years.
I read that. That's impressive.
It was a long time, and
yeah, and I mean, okay, so back to Leonora. As you were writing this book, I can only imagine how much time and truly emotional energy it would take to try to come up with how her mind thought. I mean, I know you read books, you studied things, but I mean, even as you were describing, and it's so touching, because I too, when I see one of her paintings, I want to know more about it, and I'm not sure, but you would take time to describe the process for her, in creating a painting, or why she chose a certain element. And I thought that was so powerful, because how often would we like to get into the minds of someone who so brilliant as her, who's passed on, and I can't talk to her. Right. I could try, I guess, but some people might be able to, but finding those answers from, reading your book, I thought it was really helpful. And I'm sure there's still room for me to have my own subjective opinion in how or what something means that she did within a painting. But I loved taking that journey with you as you opened up the storyline as to why she made certain artistic choices.
That, it was so much fun. It was so much fun to have the paintings to kind of enter them, and
you entered them.
like with along with the time in her life when she did paint, like her first real painting, that self-portrait that hangs in the Met, was such a big part of the book, because she was with Max Ernst, who was older, and she was with these kind of established artists where she yearned, and she had made art her whole life, but she didn't have that kind of recognition at all. She hadn't really made a work of art that she had showed proudly, and that piece is just so amazing. Oh my gosh. And she started it in London where she was, and then it came to Paris with her, and she finished it in Paris. And the hyena that's in it, and that it's a self-portrait too, like how I felt like it was how she wanted to see herself, and like who she was making herself into.
And she was how old when she painted that, if you remember?
How old was she? Oh, she was, I want to say 20.
So young.
She was born in 1917, and then that was 37.
Yeah.
And I think she showed it in 38, at the surrealist exhibition, the big Paris.
With the women, was it with the one with the women that?
No, that was Peggy.
That was later
in New York.
Okay.
In 43.
Okay.
But it did end up in Peggy's collection.
Yeah.
I guess she hated it or something because of the they both, Peggy wanted Max wanted Leonora, and Leonora wanted to
right
person.
Yeah, no, that was all fascinating too, but I mean those are all influences in their art, the love wars, the love triangles, what have you. Actually, I think there were multiple, it wasn't even just a single triangle, there were many shapes of relationships. Okay, so
that's true.
So with Leonora, go ahead.
Well, I just want to say what the thing with that painting that really anchored it was when I saw the painting at the Met. I went
in person.
In person.
Yeah.
I went to New York to see it. I was like, it played such a part in the book and in her development and character. I felt like I had to see it in person because it's so different when you're standing in front of the actual painting than seeing it in a book. And I feel like paintings have energy to them that it just can't translate exactly. It's not necessarily even in the images, but in the energy that went into creating it, actual brush strokes and things. But what caught my eye was there's a blur on the floor, like something she wiped out and didn't really fix. And I didn't see it when it was just in the reproduction. And that became the kind of the mystery that I could
work with.
Enter.
You did.
Just with my whole being, that curiosity and like what happened there.
So was that a personal interpretation then? That wasn't
absolutely
how you imagined? I mean, you could be spot
my
on.
Interpretation that it was one of the fairy folk of Ireland that she had wiped out, because then she painted such wild, worlds later on. And this was wild too with the hyena that's in it and everything. But I felt like, okay, that could have taken some time to gain confidence to be able to paint her visions, which just seemed like they must have been so powerful and containing finding a way to contain it and not maybe be swept away by this other imaginary world, which was so strong for her.
Yeah. This is powerful to me because I'm a believer in the subconscious and understanding it more. And so therefore I love dreams. I think dreams are really important and really powerful, and we should pay attention to them. Sometimes I'll wake up and my husband is like, uh-oh, bad dream. But I don't even want to tell him. My dreams are vivid and crazy sometimes. But every now and then I will write down, I'll write down something about the dream, something that was so poignant, powerful. I don't want to forget it because I maybe want to go back and understand it. What did it mean? Or, not everything is black and white in a dream. It can mean so many other things. So it's a representation of our, our current existence, or maybe our future, or our past, right?
I've had that experience so much where I've, just kept a dream journal for different periods of my life and then gone back and looked at them. And it is sometimes like the future, you can see it through a different lens, and it is sort of prophetic, or just something in you that your subconscious knew, your unconscious knew before you did, right?
Yeah.
Like, how are we creating our lives?
Yeah. No, I love dreams, and
that we can't logically connect with.
Yeah. Yeah, and I do. I mean, maybe it's not our time to know, quite yet what that dream represents or represented. Sometimes it's just not time to know, in my opinion. Right. But so what I've loved about coming across the surrealists, especially the women,
Yes, I do, absolutely. The women were embodied in a way the men were not, I think, and we're using their senses, and where the men were so cerebral, I think, with a lot of it.
Yeah, and it's empowering to see where someone is willing to take their mind. It's like, ooh, she did that, she wrote that, she drew that. Wow, that's something I wish I could do. So let me just, if you don't mind, I'll just bring up, so Frida Kahlo, right? I know so many people are familiar with her, and she was the first person I came across, and I'm part Mexican, so half Mexican on my dad's side. So I was always kind of, ooh, let me know more about this Mexican artist, because she's got my blood, right? But I didn't realize, I kind of thought her drawings or her paintings were more of a process for her to maybe relieve herself of, but I think that was a healing agent for her. But also, I don't think she could have lived this life without doing her, creating these pieces. I don't think she would have lived as long. I feel like it was really important that she truly portray the honest thoughts that were going through her mind, or dreams that were passing through her mind. And I was a little floored by some of her work. I didn't realize how awful someone's mind can be. You know what I mean? When I say awful, I'm just meaning
and
so dark, painful, right?
I think her body was in so much pain also.
Yeah.
And I feel like so much of that comes through some of these, but her tortured love for Diego. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And then I just look at her versus him, like, why were you so hung up on this guy? He was a piece of shit.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
no,
in so many ways.
Well, I mean, we've all been through, well, I don't know. I can admit I've been through the wasting my days on something that, for someone that wasn't worth it. But
yes, we all have. It's just so much easier to see it in someone else. And reading her diary
Sure.
too. Like, have you seen her diary with all the different colors?
I have one of her books. When I was in Mexico, I bought a beautiful book. It's a journal, and it's supposed to be a journal that you can use as a normal human, right? And I'm thinking, how am I going to ever compare to this? It's like I can't create these, examples, but anyway, it's a beautiful book I have.
That's a bit intimidating.
Yeah, but I and again, that I've had a few moments with paintings when I come across them, I cry. It's like, wow, because like you said, this energy, it's really powerful. So I mean, I don't know how many people really understand the power of going to a museum, where these pieces hang. I know the people who do, for the most part, get it. But I love going to museums. That's the first thing I do in a foreign country. I'm like, let's go to the museums.
Me too. Oh my gosh. So they light you up in all kinds of ways, and you're able to be, realize what you're drawn to, and then just kind of move toward it. It's like, maybe you don't have to look at every single painting, obviously, that they have, but you're drawn to the paintings maybe you need to see, or it's such a personal experience.
Yeah, no, I love that you say that, because I do feel like there can be a pull, and I think when you go into a museum, it's a great thing to just kind of say, lead me, put it out there, lead me, where do I need to go, what do I need to see, and you just meander. And I do feel there's sometimes this pull. It's like, oh, I didn't go around that corner, I'm going to go around that corner, and then it's like, this.
Exactly. Yeah, no, Leonora's self-portrait is right around a corner in the museum, and it's just and I actually went in there because the room was closed. It was closed the first day I went, and then they said, no, it'll be open the next day, and it wasn't open, and I had to be somewhere, and I was like, I'm just gonna go around the cord, I'm just gonna walk around. Which I did. And
good for you.
That was another kind of insight into Leonora, like, oh, maybe she did all these brave things, but it actually made her heart pound. It's like maybe it was a little scary or something.
She still did it. Yeah.
To be brave kind of can be scary, going against the rules, or that kind of thing. And then they did open it up, and I got to spend more time with it after the guard said, do you work here? I said no.
I could tell you all about this piece.
Right. Let me tell you about this.
I could just stand here all day and talk about Leonora with whoever wants to know. No, that's amazing. I would agree. As I was reading your book, I was thinking, oh my goodness, how brave. Just, starting from, I don't know exactly the humble, actually her beginnings weren't humble at all. But she came from a wealthy family, right? But just to step away from that comfort and be able to leave that lifestyle to pursue art without any knowledge as to if she'd be successful or not, and hoping her father would continue to support her. But it was very questionable. It sounds like so what exactly do you know about her
when
upbringing?
Said she was going to move to Paris, like, you don't get a penny, and may you die penniless in a garret, but for her, I think that would have been more freedom than she had in her wealthy life, with her father, wanting, and I think her mother wanting her to marry well. They wanted, because they had money, but they didn't have necessarily like the titles, which were kind of important for them, it seemed like.
Okay.
And so she was the one daughter. Her brothers all had, freedom to do what they wanted, but as a woman, she was supposed to marry well, and that was not what she was going to do, which I love. And then apparently that her family did tell this story of like her just being basically an artist model, and not necessarily that she became the great artist that she did become.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. Her cousin has written a lot about her, and in her book she talks about how I think she met someone from Mexico or something. They're like, Leonora Carrington, are you kidding? That's your, aunt or cousin, or, and
Yeah.
she wasn't just an artist model. She's this amazing artist. So it was really a very big split with her family. I think she did stay in touch with her mother, but maybe she only saw her once or twice, I think, later. So that took a lot of courage, I think, to leave. And she wasn't, she knew she was going to see Max Ernst there, but he was married, so she was really going on her own, and she was 20 and really brave.
I know people out there, hoping to catch a break, or especially when you're sacrificing so much. And I know for her, again, she could have remained in England and lived a very comfortable, but most likely a miserable life. What's your feeling about, finding your passion and pursuing it or not? I mean, really, I know people who don't, because it doesn't make sense.
Miserable.
Yeah,
on
just
some level. Yeah, feeling like you were born to do this thing, and if you don't do it, like if you don't express that thing that's in you to express, it's probably going to turn on you, it like eat you from the inside out. Like, it's not, I feel like those things, like you have to follow it. You have to see.
I completely agree. And I'm a big believer. I had left Utah to pursue a music, singing, dancing career in New York City, right? When I was, I waited till I was almost 30, but that's because I got to that point where I was like, if I don't do this, I will never. And then what, right? It was kind of like living in this, I guess I'm okay. We tell ourselves, life is good, it's fine. But
maybe I don't need that thing. That was a youthful
dream,
aspiration,
or
a pipe dream. Yeah.
Right. But it does eat, it eats at you. Truly. I mean, you find a way to mask it. I mean, I've seen people, they'll mask their deepest desires or their passions, or, their calling in life, whatever you want to call it, by, alcohol, drugs, maybe overeating, or just, I don't know, multiple partner. I don't know. There are so many things you can try to mask your soul's calling and avoid it.
So, so many ways that you can destroy yourself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so for example, if you hadn't followed your pursuit of creating by, writing poetry or writing stories, I mean, how would you be, and what would you be doing?
I know, I don't really want to know, but I have two children who are grown now. And so for me, it was balancing that and being finding the time to write, making room for it, even if you had to get up at 5 a.m, just to keep that seed of creativity and like my own personal kind of inner life alive. Because being a mom, you can so easily become subsumed in the day-to-day needs of your children, and you do, even if you do keep your own thing alive. But I feel so grateful that for me, that it was writing, because I could do that. It was hard, but I could do it on my own. And I didn't maybe need a group, or I didn't have to go to New York City, although I really wanted to. In my mid-30s, when I got divorced, I was like, oh, could I go? But no.
We could have hung out. My grandmother, bless her heart, love her. Her name's Esther Montoya. And I have to bring her up because she was one of those people who, she would stay put. She was very happy staying put as long as she had her family around her, right? And cooking, but her escape was watching old movies. So she and I would sit and watch these old movies, and we'd watch some movie taking place, like a Cary Grant movie or something taking place in New York City. And I'm like, Grandma, and this was before I had aspirations to move there. But every time I saw these movies of different places, like Europe, but New York mostly, I said, Grandma, I would love to see you there. Wouldn't we have so much fun if we were living in New York City together? And she'd look over at me and just smile. And, I had this connection with New York, and with her, kind of like this, how do we live different lives, or, had different dynamics? I think we would have been there together, living this other life. And it's interesting how maybe that's one of my, imaginative abilities. I can be other places, and I'm currently in Florida, but sometimes I'm not. So my husband knows that. But it's so powerful how these little dreams keep you alive. They keep you going, they keep you motivated. And eventually I did get to New York, but just talking about it with a friend who would dream with me was really beautiful.
That's beautiful. Thanks for sharing that. That's my Mexican grandmother loved old movies too, and loved going to the movies.
You have a Mexican grandma too?
Yes.
Oh,
Juanita Cordova.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I'm a quarter Hispanic.
Oh,
Yeah.
so
I don't really look at with the kind of fair stuff going on. But,
all good. And then you do your DNA and watch this. You have more than me. I know, it's funny how it's fascinating, because I ended up being mostly European, British, and Scottish. I thought that was so strange, but
that's amazing.
Anyway, but so let's keep talking about dreams and imagination. So as you were traveling through Europe, and you were in Paris, I imagine that's where you started getting more knowledge and inspiration regarding the life of Leonora while in Paris. I mean, could you have written this without having been in Paris?
I don't think so. Although I didn't go to I had been to the south of France, though I once I started writing the book, I didn't go back. But I was torn, but also it didn't really the chance didn't really present itself, although I could have gone probably to Saint Martin d'Ardèche, the town she and Max made their idyllic house, their that life. I love that life.
Let's go.
Yes, but I knew I had been to the to Aix and the Loire, the river that runs through so much of the south of France that I wrote about, Provence. I'd been there, and so I had those sense memories. I dipped in the Loire and knew how cold it was, and I'd been there both with my mother as when I was a young woman, and then with my daughter. I think we went to Fontaine de la Cluse. I'm not saying this well, forgive me, but those, the memories. So I created the town kind of through my imagination, but I had the sense memory of the place, and I knew, there was, the lavender that grew there, and the rosemary, and kind of how it felt when the sun heated up those fields, and that sense of it. And the thing with Paris, which was difficult when I went, because I wanted to go to the area where the surrealists were, and the old cafes
Montmartre,
and
right?
things.
Montmartre?
No, and that's what I was gonna say, Montmartre, but it's it's another section that will come to me, but it was so different, like Rue Jacob, and it's Montparnasse there, a different Montparnasse. Okay. But how it was in the late 30s is so different from now, with the tall buildings and the kind of the traffic, so you get the sense of it, and how the cafes are now is so different. But you kind of just really have to imagine what it would have been like.
You have to whittle down those buildings.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Yes.
So you kind of had to imagine anyway.
Yeah, but I don't. Yeah, Paris is just such a feast, and that time between the wars, just all the artists that were there.
Yeah.
Everybody was there,
and it's so sad to see. I mean, the war really destroyed World War II. All wars, but World War II destroyed that momentum that was taking place. I mean, as I was reading, I love World War II stories as well, and any type of story regarding that, and the human ability to overcome. I love all of those stories. but I found it interesting to see that the gifts and talents of these artists were being diminished and demolished, destroyed. It wasn't safe to have a creative mind anymore. It wasn't safe.
No, right? Yeah. Well, the degenerate art. Yeah. Like the idea that art could be degenerate, and that art show that the Nazis curated, the degenerate art with all of the modern artists in it, right? And then all on Hitler's list, and were outlaws basically. And yeah, I mean, a lot of them were, killed or had to escape. And the idea that freedom of expression is really dangerous to fascism is a real thing. I mean, there's kind of like the opposite of control, state control, is, the freedom of the unconscious, and that's what the surrealists were all about. Getting into those weird dream spaces and exploring them, and I think that Hitler was so angry about that too, because he had wanted to be an artist. He had studied art and wasn't accepted, and he had his realistic view of art that he he thought that's what art should be. And so that was, I think, the idea behind that Degenerate Art show.
I've also noticed, and I think one of the powers, especially of this particular art, surrealism, it really is so exploratory. It allows the mind, and I know this is what certain, maybe, the fascists or the, the dictators, these people who want to keep reins and control over their, their people. I believe this art really stimulates the mind. It also lends itself to asking questions. So, and people don't want you asking questions. It's like, but why?
Right. Don't question reality. Don't question our agreed upon reality.
Right. This is working. Don't ask questions. It's like, yeah, it's those people they wanted to get rid of. And I mean, to this day, so I'm going to just tell you, so Sentience, the company I'm doing, sentience.com, it is all about asking questions, because I want people to be curious, not living in this state of mind that they believe they should be in, because there's more to this world than meets the eye, truly, right?
Truly. So much more. Yeah. And the things that we don't have that curiosity, it was like you have blinders on, kind of like you don't see what is right in front of you, maybe, or feel it or smell it, or like you're just, and I think it's so much the tyranny of our minds versus our bodies, maybe, like our brains just got too big at some point, and now we're destroying the earth. But
yeah, well, I mean, it's also again, back to the idea of awareness. If our minds are just following suit with our usual whatever stints, our job, we do our regular schedule all day long, what about reading some new literature or something, or going, finding something that you've never done before, just to see what happens. I kind of like that idea of just breaking your mold, and in some way, whether it's trying a new food, I don't care. It's like just something with the senses, right? We're talking the senses. I love just kind of cracking open a different part of your ability to sense, to feel, to hear. I studied opera, right? So listening to opera, my kids are so used to it. They're like, they don't ask mom to turn down her volume. They're used to.
That's wonderful. Oh, how wonderful.
And if I listen to opera,
that,
they don't go, oh, what's this? It's gross. They just know it. But I like the idea of people trying. I listen to a little death metal on occasion, because that's what my husband likes, right? So, but it's okay. I think it's good to get out of your comfort zone, get out of your shell, get out of your little
we're so much
shell.
bigger than we let ourselves be, I think.
Yeah.
And one thing, when you were talking, I thought, oh my gosh, yeah, read one of Leonora Carrington's short stories,
Right.
And there you
I have this one. Wait, let's see if I can get it.
Oh my gosh, what a great addition. The Debutante and Other Stories.
I actually just got this, but this is what what do you have? Do you have something too? Me too.
Milk of Dreams. Oh, you have the Milk of Dreams too. Isn't it wonderful?
I see, and these are the types of books I read to my children. Okay.
God, you're lucky kids.
Well, because, and I think that's what, Leonora, don't mind if I compare you just for a moment, but Dr. Seuss, right? He was so crazy and funny, and the words he would use, it's like, but that's not a word. Oh, well, I'm using it anyway. And I think it's so fun. But Leonora, my kids, they were laughing so hard at some of the statements and some of the things that she would talk about in this, and the images, and guess what? This is the beautiful thing about her art, and those those that also have her similar style, the surrealists, we'll say. Mm-hmm. They don't expect you to get it. It's like, but what is it? It's like, guess what? It doesn't matter. We don't care.
That's right. No, and she wouldn't talk about her paintings. I think, because it wasn't about explaining the painting. The painting is about opening the doors, right? And all the windows. It's not about putting words on it that are going to like narrow your perception. It's opening it all up.
So I'm going to read from your book,
Oh,
page 362, just a small paragraph. This is about Renato's asking. So Renato asks her what it means. She shakes her head. It's about her painting, right? It just is, she says, and he lets it lie. Art is something one does, she decides, not something one needs to talk about. It exists without explanation. Everyone will have their own interpretation anyway. And that gives people liberty. I love that. We do not have to be scholars to understand these paintings, any kind of art, really. I mean, some people will shame you, in my opinion, to think you need to be a scholar to understand, but this is all about just experiencing, exploring at whatever level you're at, doesn't matter.
exactly. And I think sometimes scholarship, you can so easily become too analytical so that you're, always you're putting your own kind of interpretation on it and then going with that interpretation, whereas the work itself could work on you and maybe all these different levels, on that soul level or the heart, or it just, they grow with you. And if you've gotten, I don't know if you've ever lived near a museum and been able to visit the same painting many times, but I feel like paintings are kind of, to me, they're close to poems where it means something different maybe to you at different times in your life, or you notice something different, but they can kind of live with you and just be a part of you. And exactly like you were saying, you don't have to be a scholar, you don't have to know like what the kind of other people think it means either. It can just be what it is to you.
Exactly. And I think people will enjoy life a whole lot more.
Right.
Opening this up to themselves as a just, it's your freedom. It's your experience. It's not anyone else's.
Yeah.
So with opera, I did the same thing, because I would find there were, so I was a director of an opera company for a while in Long Island, and we were trying to get more people to come to the opera, right? And I'm such an easygoing person. I like fancy things, but I can be very down to earth, okay? But I just wanted people to understand this this shouldn't be a painful task to come to the opera. It really shouldn't. If you just sit and listen, you'll feel something, right? Just allow yourself to, maybe it's kind of these acting classes too, because I did some too, and it really helps, or yoga or whatever. It's like, kind of helps you to like let go, just listen, take a moment and enjoy. Not interpret it. You may not even know the language, but if you just let yourself feel, you can get a lot out of it. And I was trying to invite people in that way to experience opera without having this need to understand or interpret it,
Right. Because music goes so far beyond that. Right. I mean, you can feel it on your skin, hear it, it stays with you, and it works on you on this emotional level, which is every bit or more valid than kind of the intellectual interpretation.
You actually brought up Un bel dì, vedremo from Madame Butterfly, and I wanted to know, is that a historical fact, or was that something you just threw in there, and why?
I put it in there. Yeah, there was singing. Because it's in it kind of ties the two arcs together at that one point in my book.
Yeah.
That Max Ernst arc, being on the ghost train, trying to escape the Nazis, and that cattle car that he was in with the other Germans who had been interned by the French and then were wanted by the Nazis. So the French were trying to, evade the Nazis. And then there was a sister camp of the women, which their trains kind of met up, like in a station, but they weren't allowed to go see each other. They were kept from each other, and in his telling of it, he does say that a woman began singing, and I think he may say it was opera, but I don't think it was Un Bel Dì. But that is one of my favorite songs, and especially that recording that I talk about too, Caruso, and I just love that song. And then it felt to me like that song, and the longing in it, and like, right, one day he will come back.
Oh yeah.
We'll be together. And then of course that he comes back with his wife, and that it just felt like a good kind of parallel to the story that I was telling.
No, I could feel that pull, the pain, the longing, and the
yeah. And then so that cuts to Leonora waking up her first day in Paris, and they're in Leonore Finney's apartment. And I thought, gosh, well, of course Leonore Finney would play opera, right? Well, of course she would.
Of course.
She did sets for opera and costumes and that kind of thing.
I am sure of that too. She looked, in her pictures, because ever since I read your book, I started researching her a little more, because I hadn't really known much of her, and I'm grateful I knew something of Remedios Varo and a few of the others you wrote about. That this is such a feast of art. That's all I'm going to say. Your book, I love it. But I started researching more Leonore Fini and found out she's Argentine, Italian. My husband's from Argentina, and he's Italian. But it's interesting because she's definitely, what do you call it? She's just a little more elaborate, a little more. But I loved her. I loved her.
Theatrical. I think of her as being theatrical.
Theatrical, yeah. But I have loved having friends that have gotten me out of my comfort zone. Those friends who are a little more, hey, I don't care, let's go. It's like, oh, okay, I guess I'll be a little more brave. It's good to be around brave friends.
That's right. Yeah.
And Leonora, so I do want to talk, we've talked a little bit about the book, but I really do want to talk about her and her struggles with mental health, and what you noted, and maybe reflecting on how you've written this book, but how, her process and what happened to her within those years, that brought her to that mental breakdown she had. Just if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah. Well, so she and Max were living in the south of France in 1939. That was when France went to war with Germany, and he was interned. Being a German citizen, he was put in this camp, right? And she was alone, and she was so young. So then she would have been 22, and and living alone and trying to get him back. And then he does come back. Like they manage to get him out of the camp for Christmas. And then the next, like there's maybe 5 months later, 6 months later, he's taken again. And that's when the Nazis are invading. That's when her life becomes so precarious. And meanwhile, through her art and I think being immersed in the kind of surrealist perspective where there are multiple realities, there are her imagination was so vivid, so powerful that I think reality, and I feel like I could really relate to this. Like when you're alone, you know, your thoughts are kind of can become huge, and like reality takes on a strange kind of flavor, I think. And she was very alone. I think she had one a close friend there, but the town that they were in was very conservative. Leonora was 26 years younger than Max, and then they weren't married. And I think those two things probably really pitted certain the women, I would think, especially against her. And she, yeah, I think she went into this other place where she wasn't really eating. She was kind of drinking, and she was kind of lost her bearings, I think. And then when her friends come through and are fleeing Paris and offer to take her with them, she goes, because how terrifying if the Nazis come, and so and then part of that journey too, I just think it must have been so frightening, but then her this other reality that had, I think, is a part of an artist's abilities, greater abilities. And I think that's what, for me, seeing her work later on, when I felt like it was this process of individuation. Do you know that the kind of the Jungian term where a person really becomes their full self, like male and female, it's like they don't need anyone else. They're fully themselves. And I think that this kind of like decline that she went into, the spiral, or because then she's interned. She's put in an asylum in Spain by her dad. But then she's also, thinking she can talk to Hitler and talk him out of the war. And like, she has this magical way of thinking.
I like you call it magic.
Which is so much a part of her creativity.
Yeah.
But and with the danger that was all around it, how precarious her life was. I think it just made, like, of course that happened, and then later too, it might have been in her book about it down below, but where she documents her time in the asylum and her kind of downward spiral into this other reality, but that she realized, like, she could go into those realms, but she had to be anchored in the real world, and she wasn't taking care of her body, and so she really kind of lost her bearings, I think, for a while. But it was part of that journey I think she had to take to become who she became, and that was really what drew me to her story, besides her absolute brilliance.
Oh no, as I was reading your book, I had an understanding that she had been through some of this, I knew she had gone to an asylum, and I thought that was really interesting. I just didn't understand how she had gotten there, but I didn't realize. So this is something too, when I saw the kind of pain that she was facing, being very young in this small town, being heavily judged, I'm sure, by everyone around her, and alone and not sure that's like, for me, that's kind of been one of my issues in life, is not knowing what's next, the unknown. I can either be exciting or it can be extremely frightening. So in this circumstance, it was probably more frightening than anything, because it's like bad news every day. People are dying. They're going to come take you away. And then on top of that, imagine, like you said, it's her mind. Her mind had such capabilities of conjuring up anything, to a point where she, yes, would possibly be no longer in reality, because maybe that's a better place to be at that point in her life. But also, one of the things I thought about was she was so happy. I feel like, being in love is one of those places that can truly take you to crazy, really. Like I've had those moments of like, I'm a very passionate Scorpio woman. Okay. So it's like,
oh, wonderful.
but it's not just my sun, my moon is also Scorpio. I have a lot of Scorpio driving me. But anyway, so when I hear about love and this and lust and this excitement and feeling like you're on top of the world, I feel like she had such a great life with Max, and it was, and the way you depict it, it's so beautiful, really. I'm just like, oh, so wonderful to be in love like that. But then to have that all taken away, it's like an abandonment, right? Like those abandonment issues many people face.
Right.
It can take you to a very, very dark place. And if she didn't know where this dark, I'm going to call it the dark place, but if she would go in the dark place, I'm sure often, in order to retrieve the inspiration she needed, right? You kind of have to live a little there, in my opinion, to be an artist. Like whether you're playing a dark character or a light character, or painting a dark piece or a light piece, it's kind of like you've got to know it. But I feel like her darkness had sunk so low. It's kind of, she couldn't get herself back up, right? Where she's like kind of buried herself alive. Like I saw that. It was almost like this feeling of, I don't know how to get out anymore. And yeah.
Like losing a sense of her identity.
Yeah.
Maybe it had been, I think, too.
Sorry, you cut out a little bit. What did you say? It had been what?
Just tied to Max, her identity being so tied.
Right. And I know many out there, when we get caught in a relationship, it's kind of like, what would happen if you lost this person, whether it were death, whether it were, a breakup, whatever it may be, how could you still be happy? I've asked myself that. It's like, oh, I better be, because I can't control what's going on outside. I can, as best I can, what's going on inside the here. So, it's really important to have that happier space within yourself.
Yeah.
That's wow. Anyway, no, I do think Leonora overcame so much, and I would agree. She had to. She experienced that for a reason.
Yeah, and she had to escape. She could have easily been shut up in an asylum for the rest of her life. And oh my gosh, imagine not having the thousands of paintings that she
can made. You imagine that? I can't imagine.
Yeah, if we didn't.
So remind us and tell, I mean, it's in your book, but tell us a little bit about that. You're right. She had to escape. She didn't get let go, whatever.
Yeah, you know how it works, because her family put her there, and then it's after because her nanny visits her there, and it's a cousin who is in Santander, of Leonoras, that the nanny connects with somehow, and he is a doctor and manages to get her released, to say, like, you're clearly not insane, and he gets her out, but then she's still being watched by the woman who was kind of her keeper in the asylum, and the family is paying this woman to watch her, and she has there's a moment where after she's been released and they're in Madrid, that the man who had her helped her father to put her in the asylum, kind of offers her, well, like, you could be my mistress, and because the father wants to send her to another asylum in Africa, in North Africa. And
yeah, this is her escape. I love this part.
Yeah,
that was awesome.
And so she considers it, well, maybe this would be a good option. And then she's like, I cannot do this. I can't be this scumbag's mistress, and so she says no, and then she escapes. They're sending her, she's on this train to Lisbon, and she's met by this kind of entourage of people who are going to make sure that she gets to this other asylum.
Yeah.
Because her father was so powerful as the head of Imperial Chemicals. Oh my gosh, what a company. I mean, it just sounds like fiction, right? But anyway, she escaped. She actually did escape from this another woman who was like watching her. She goes and says she needs like gloves and a hat for her journey, and then she's starving, and so they go into a restaurant, and from the getting gloves, she has a little bit of money that she can get a cab, but she escapes through the bathroom of this restaurant, and ends up going to Renato, to meet Renato, who she knew was one of the ambassadors at the at the embassy there, at the Mexican embassy. And so she makes it to the Mexican embassy. They let her in. And Renato says he'll marry her, so she'll have diplomatic immunity and not be in the worried about her father anymore, in his custody, because he wants to lock her up. I think he was ashamed of her. A woman that independent is dangerous still, but especially then.
Yeah, I wonder, it does make me wonder what her father would say now. I mean, is he apologetic? Is he proud? Is he, remorseful? I don't know. I mean, I'm curious what he would say at this point.
Yeah.
So many, years later. When I look at these types of situations, I try to understand where other people are coming from, and I see her father. I'm not making excuses for him, but it's very possible he came from one of those very strict backgrounds as well, right?
Right.
Where it's like, and you must behave, and he did, and he was following all the rules, and this is what everyone else should do, and that's why surrealists don't do well in that kind of an environment. Okay.
Yeah, I think a lot of them kind of, split ways with their families, with their more conservative families.
Right.
Find their own
Yeah.
ways and ways of thinking and creating.
Yeah, I mean, so as a parent, we'd hope, for me, it's like if my child decides to go, and I can't say anything because I ran off to be an artist myself, so it wouldn't be that, but whatever it might be, how can we support our children and helping them to become whoever it is they need to be in this life, right? I
Right.
think
But
it's a great
time
thing.
as a parent, you do want them to be maybe safe, or like probably we'd feel better if they followed like the kind of structure we've set up for them.
Yeah.
So
And what
just,
do we do if not, right?
yeah, yeah.
What do we do, Michaela?
I don't know.
Let it
Takes
go.
a lot of trust to be a parent, I think,
Yeah. Oh, that's for sure. I do
Wisdom
believe in,
greater than.
yeah, yeah. Oh, I definitely agree with that. So you had mentioned earlier, why haven't we heard as much about Leonora Carrington?
Mhm.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, yeah. And now she really is having this day. I think that people are getting to know her.
I know,
Yay.
right?
Milk of Dreams is it's the
Yeah. The
title.
Biennale di
Yes, yes,
Venice. Yeah.
Venice.
Are we
These
going?
Biennale, but
Biennale, yeah.
Biennale. I want to go. Oh my gosh, I want to go.
I'm planning on it myself. I would agree. She's being recognized, and it's a long time coming.
It's a long time coming. Yeah, that's right. And she just kept, creating and trusting. And I'm just amazed at how many paintings she made, and how she was always creating. And now the world is finally noticing, right? Seeing
Yeah.
her brilliance and being inspired by her, which is really exciting to see.
It is. And I hope people get to know her a little more as well, right? I mean, I think they would through
Yes.
her paintings. They would, right? But I know reading your book gives you a beautiful vision into what her life was like, but also it's a very clever and a very but also constructive way to kind of follow her journey. I like novels. I like reading, especially because I get to create these stories in my own head. The way you depict the experiences, the way she sees things, the way she's the little towns. I could envision them myself too, and I loved it. But I had read some of the reviews for your book, and I had to giggle a little, just a little. Have you read them?
Like on Goodreads and things, or
I think this was Amazon.
Yeah. Oh, Amazon. Okay. I try not to. Sometimes I'll peek. I'll go, oh my God. But a lot of them thought you needed like an art history degree to understand it. Is that some of what you were thinking
This
of?
is exactly what I'm addressing. Yes.
Yeah.
So I would say, like going into a museum, right? You don't need a degree to read this. Maybe an open mind of sorts, and if you don't understand a word or a term or something, but it never hurts to, I had my phone. I didn't even have to get an encyclopedia. I didn't have to get a dictionary. I didn't have to get anything. I wanted to know, oh wait, who's Leonora Fini? I wasn't sure. Google. Oh, that's awesome. Kept reading. It's like there are ways to find more knowledge, and that's what books are for, right?
I think so.
It's to inspire us to become better. I mean, the kind of books I like to read personally. I like books that really help me become a better person, or to think outside the box, or yeah, just explore something I'd
Me too.
never known. I'm like, so I would almost say to that person,
like broaden, right? You grow, you
amen.
get to travel places and meet new people.
Right. It's like, oh, but I've never been there, so I won't get it. It's like, that's your problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know how to say these words. That's okay. Neither will half of the other people. Don't worry about it. But
well, yeah, I think you're closer to maybe the ideal reader. Leonora and the Morning Light. Right?
Yeah. Well, and again, this is helpful. So I'll liken it to an opera. So if you don't want to feel uneducated going to an opera, I get it. Some people just don't want to. They don't want to feel. They don't want to feel inferior to something. So how about, if you don't know much about Leonora Carrington, maybe, sure, go look up the Wikipedia book, or the description on her, read about her. I'm sure there are all sorts of websites you can find about her. There are all sorts of, different things. If you want to prepare to read the book, that's fine too. Or just take it at face value and enjoy the ride. I loved it. I loved your book.
Thank you so much.
And now I'm like, okay, so you ended right when she's meeting Remedios Varo, who can I show you something? Sorry, this is going to be a really weird.
Oh my gosh.
I know it's kind of fuzzy. It's not the real thing, obviously, but hey.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
You wrote about that painting.
That's the Montañas, right? Or
and it's it's like she's at a sewing thing, and the floor is being made by.
Yes, at the end of the book. Oh, I love that painting so much.
And then I was like, I've definitely got to get her on my podcast. I'm like, of course, she talks about this painting that my husband and I there are no mistakes and no what do you call it, coincidences. Well, there are mistakes, but there are no coincidences. Or you can call a mistake a coincidence, whatever you want to do. But so when we were in Mexico City, we had gone to Frida Kahlo's house, then we just happened to go to the Museum of Modern Art there. We didn't have very much time. We had 3 days, and we hit, a few spots that we knew we wanted to. One of the museums being this Museum of Modern Art. They happened to have that very day an exhibit of this artist I had never heard of, Remedios Varo. An entire exhibit of her work. I was so immediately drawn. I had no idea who this woman was. And I'm telling you, I thank God for that day because it changed me, literally. It changed me as a woman. It changed me as a thinker, as a dreamer. Just seeing her work in person and following her story a little bit. And then I wanted to know more, right? That's what's so beautiful. We have so much out there to research, to find, to explore, So I mean, she just blew me away, and that's through her I found Leonora. So it was reverse, right? Leonora found.
I'm so drawn to their friendship, and that bond that they had, and they shared their dreams and, made kind of surrealist recipes of things together, and would go to the market, and get all these strange kind of herbs and concoctions they'd make. They were, basically witches, right? They were like magical
alchemists.
Yes, the talismans they made, and they played deliciously. And I just, that kind of friendship is really so inspiring. to me
That's
between
beautiful.
women,
Yeah.
and how they fed each other's art. And Remedios is incredible too. And I would love to see an exhibit of her art. But I was able to go to Mexico City with my husband and to see Leonora's show there. I think it was 2018. That was just incredible. It was retrospective, and gosh, seeing her giantess, that huge painting of the goddess, like the earth goddess.
Oh, in real life, in
So,
person.
oh my gosh, yeah.
I
So
can't imagine.
moving and beautiful.
I'm hoping, it's funny because you have people who are like, concert junkies. It's like,
Yes.
artist junkies, it's like, where's the next exhibit? I mean, I'll join that club. So I want to know where Remedios is going to be playing. Where's she going to be playing? And
That's right. Me too. I know. Leonor, Finney, Remedios.
yeah,
Leonora.
all of them. Well, so is there a Peggy Guggenheim out there right now? I'm curious because she was so good at curating, right? So good at, discovering, curating. Diego and I, my husband, he used to call me Peggy or Guggenheim Peggy, whatever, because I kind of would have this little personality trait, not trying to get men, not like that, not that part. No, but we saw a play with her, not with her, but it was depicting her life, and I was like, ooh, the whole Italian, like the Venice, getting a home in Venice, starting her own art colony kind of thing. I was like, that's so me. I just want to start my own colony of artists and people and creators,
Yes, she's fabulous. She's fabulous. And I've never been to her museum in Venice. I went to Venice when I was young, but I didn't go to her museum. So that's the other, if I do get to go to the Biennale, I will visit her house in Venice and the museum.
And again, so then you're collecting all sorts of energy, right? Because you've got Peggy's world, her home, her life, then the artists that she saved. She saved art. And I loved reading you tell a beautiful story about her here too. And some of her characteristics, I got to see a little more so in your story. And I loved it. I'm like, wow, what an incredible, crusader of art.
Yes, she was. She was
love it.
Art junkie, right? For sure. And crusader, and did so much good work for art and life. She followed her passion.
Yeah, and she had she must have had an incredible, I don't know if it's an intuition or just a knowledge or a combination, just a great eye.
I think she did. And I think it was Marcel Duchamp, who was her friend, who kind of taught her at the beginning about modern art, the surrealist, like kind of turned her on to them. But then, oh my gosh, of course, she had her own, she followed her gut, I think, and had such a refined eye for art and what she was drawn to. I think she trusted that. Because and I think she I think she said she tried to buy a painting a day. She saved all this art before the Nazis descended on Paris. And then she had to get it to America too. She had to actually get her collection. And so she had to hide it. Her story is so fascinating.
Is that one of the next books? No, I don't know. So what is your next project? Gosh. Do you have another project or are you taking a break?
Oh, I never take a break, really. I know I've kind of gone into other realms, but I'm still, yeah, maybe Peggy. There's more people who then her life intersected with later on too, and kind of the journey she had as an older woman is kind of pulling me into it too. And she was really one of my favorite characters to write. She's so frank and human. She really had such a good heart, I think, and a wild personality.
She had a wild side.
Very
side. I would love to see a movie or screenplay about her, like a real like blockbuster style, right? Not just a documentary.
How was that play? Must have been great about her.
The play was incredible. It was a monologue, and I think that was great. However, you don't get to see as much of the dynamics. You know what I mean? Like if you're just hearing her telling her story, I'm trying to remember who the actor was, but this was in New York. It was at a smaller theater up on the Upper West Side. It was like the Bleecker something theater. Something.
Yeah, the woman. I'm trying to
Mercedes
Rule.
Yeah.
Mercedes Rule.
Yes.
Yeah. I
do you remember? Oh, you remember
something? I think I saw the movie Art Addict, a documentary about Peggy, and I think Mercedes talks in it about playing her.
Yes.
And I would, gosh, how wonderful that you got to see her.
Well, and again, it's like
she's one of my favorite actresses.
Oh, okay, well, good. So I got to see two favorite characters you love. No, but I found through my life, because I was raised actually rather in a conservative style, means, however you want to call it. And I would say I thought it was kind of maybe sacrilegious or kind of irreverent to think outside of the box, or ask too many questions.
It's not polite, right? For a girl, especially, right?
For a girl, that's for sure. But also just, the kind of upbringing I had. And then it was interesting. It was all, once I realized it was a fake plexiglass facade that I had built around me, or allowed to be built around me. Some of it I had built, but also some of it was placed there. I didn't realize until later, once I moved to New York, and also I think, I had been through some crazy things through my life and in my 20s, and I remembered those were definitely eye-opening to me, to see that it's like, you have kind of a dark corner of your soul.
I think I have Scorpio rising. So
okay.
I can relate to your Scorpio.
I love it. What's your sun and your moon?
Virgo.
Your sun is Virgo?
I have a lot of Virgo, and my birthday is actually the same as Peggy's. The 26th of August. So that was something, when I realized that, I was like, oh, I get her. I get where she's coming from.
That's awesome. Okay. That's because I'm big into the astrology thing. So it feeds my soul, and fuels my thoughts often. No, but anyway, it took me a while to kind of break free of that, but I see a lot of people around me. I see, society often is trying to determine what one must think and say and do, and it's a plexiglass, so we can shout through it or just
right,
knock it down, and and be free, really. It's all about who you are and what you need to be doing in this life, not about what everyone says. So
Yeah, this idea that's kind of thrust upon you, maybe by your family or society, or
yeah,
even this idea of like what you're supposed to be as a woman. But like, yeah, I love that, breaking through the plexiglass, just like,
because I can see
what's on the other
see what's out there.
Yeah,
It's not
exactly.
literally a wall. I'm like, I could see there's something else going on. Why can't I have it? Why can't I try? Well,
and yeah, like you were saying, like how much of you kind of contributed to that feeling of being trapped too, or like that we're complicit, I think sometimes, it's easier to be maybe safe behind that plexiglass, to not push it down, to not cause the waves or whatever, but is it really, we get this one wild and, beautiful life to live. And how do we want to spend our time here? Who do we want to be?
I think that's a great question. And it's an important question we should ask, right?
Yeah, and continue to ask maybe too.
Yeah. Well, so going back to kind of even the beginning of our discussion, I think you found a way to help explore that is through your writing, through journaling. And I was a journaler. I still am to this day, with a pencil. Sometimes I try to talk in because I have so much I want to say and I can't write so fast. But I love that. And I've tried to encourage that, and hopefully people will realize more and more how beneficial it is to write your story or whatever. Call it what you want, just write it, express it, or even painting, drawing, whatever it is, whatever your outlet is. I think that's good. That connection you were saying earlier, there's something about that tangible expression that's on, from hand to paper, or as opposed to just typing or computers. Computers take energy from us, right? They zap it, I think.
There is something too, I think, about looking at a screen and seeing what you're writing. It's so tempting to go back and kind of fix things, or that drive, at least for me, toward perfectionism, or that, it's just a little less of just that letting something through, maybe. Yeah. So sometimes or when I wrote this book too, a lot, drafting, sometimes I would do it on the computer, but I would look away, or I'd turn off the screen or something. So it's still
almost like closing your eyes.
Closing your eyes, exactly. And letting that imagination be the bigger thing than what you've written. Because it's all, you can always revise it, it's, I think in that moment, trying to capture what maybe is trying to come through, or what you're tapping into, seems more important than getting it right the first time.
Yeah.
And for me, that like kind of throwing the perfectionism in the trash can has been so important, and continues to be with my process.
I love it. Well, you're a beautiful writer, and I can't wait to read what's next. And I'm hoping there's a little bit of a story or sequel I want to hear about, as you were telling us now, is the story of Remedios and Leonora, their friendship, because I see that you kind of leave us hanging right there. It's like, and that's when they met, and I just want to know more. So anyway, one of these days, I do too. Yeah. And then no, but I thank you, because this is what it's about, is opening our minds and our hearts to new experiences. And the story you wrote was about Leonora Carrington. It takes you somewhere you've never been.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. That means so much. Joy.
Oh, No, thank you. And I hope you are more recognized as well, and before you're dead, I know, it's like all the great artists, come on, people. No, let's open some minds here. So hopefully a lot of people will hear this podcast, but also my hope is, so looking at to the future, you have, as we talked about, is the Biennale Venice happening. Leonora's going to be leading that. So I'm hoping, maybe we can do we'll do another, podcast right before, or even from here till then, we can do a few, but we could do some sort of sequence, right? Discussing her art and why would she be chosen for this, right? It's fascinating. I mean, we know, but more people need to know why.
Yes. I know.
I'm excited. So
you'll have to let me know if you do end up going. I mean, I hope, whatever, COVID permitting, we could meet up there. No, I know I think it's like a 6-month period that it's happening over. So,
yeah.
But
I have plans. I have plans in the works, so I'll keep you posted. I try to spend as much time in Italy as I can. So I
love Italy.
Yeah. So I'm hoping for a nice summer stint next year. Whether they want me there or not, I'm going to.
They want you.
They want me, right? So I will make sure we have some space available. No, I can totally see us walking into Peggy Guggenheim's museum together, holding hands.
That's right.
Celebrating this amazingness. Yeah, it's awesome. No, thank you. I've loved our conversation.
Such a pleasure meeting you, Joy. Thank you so much for having me, and I've just loved getting to talk to you and getting to know you. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, you're a sweet soul, and I feel very blessed that we were able to talk today too. And I hope more people are able to read your story, know more about you. So where do we find you? Where do they find you?
Thanks so much. Well, there's michaelacarter.com that has some stuff on there, and some of Leonora's paintings are on there, and other paintings from the book. I have a gallery on the website. Oh, thank you. The book.
Gorgeous. Look at the book. It's just too gorgeous. You just don't want to pass it up. I know, I've got my little notes.
Yes. So lucky with the I love how it turned out, the cover and everything, I do think it's beautiful and feel so blessed.
It is a beautiful story, whether someone's looking for, historical fiction or just a beautiful biography, something art historian, whatever it is. I mean, nature. I mean, we didn't even talk about her love of nature. So,
yeah, I mean, we didn't even hit on that. No, yeah, we could talk again for sure.
I'm gonna go lay in some rocks. I'll be back. No,
that's right. Sunbathe nude on the rocks and dip in the creek. Yeah.
It's good. Well,
eat the fresh tomatoes from your garden.
Listen, we all need to get in touch with our senses, right? So sometimes it might be, being naked on the rocks somewhere, or eating fresh from the garden, because I mean, heaven forbid, how many of us get to do that? It's like a fresh apple off a tree. Oh, imagine. It's beautiful. Well,
there's so much here. Like we're just the earth, right? So lucky to be here.
It's a blessing. I know. It is. So we'll help people tap into the glory that's out there. It's awaiting them, right?
That's right.
All right. Well, much love. Thank you.
Much love to
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you so much.
And we'll be in touch again. If not on Zoom, it'll be Venice. No, Venezia.
I would love it.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Joy.